In the back seat. Lurker here. I don't post and comment too often, but I thought of something that happened to my mom back when she was about 19 or 20 years old. My mom was born in the late 50s in Detroit, so keep in mind, she kinda came from a safer time, where it was more socially acceptable to play in the streets at nighttime, talk to strangers, and not have to worry. Anyways, winters in Michigan are rough. There's snow and sleet everywhere, and you really couldn't go anywhere without a bundle fuck of clothes on. She was coming out of a local grocery, and this little old lady came up to her, with her face almost completely covered. The woman explained that she needed a ride to her house. My mom was reluctant at first, and questioned why she didn't have family or money for a phone call to pick her up. Odd, but she told me she used to pick up hitchhikers a lot, so she figured this frail old lady shouldn't be out in the cold by herself. My mom started putting groceries in the trunk and said it was okay to get inside the car. The woman got into the back seat. My mom just figured she was probably more comfortable in the back, so she didn't question it. She puts the car in drive and they go on their merry way. The woman explains that her house is just a few blocks away. When my mom began to wonder how much farther it was going to be, the woman just said softly, "Just another block or two." This is where shit hits the fan. My mom comes up to a red light at a busy intercity intersection. At this point, she gets a weird feeling, but nothing too alarming. As my mom is looking around from behind the wheel, she looks in her rearview mirror, throws her car in park, and shoves open her door. That wasn't an old lady in the back seat. It was clear as day, a man that tried luring her to his house, or God knows where. She's right in the middle of the intersection. She gets out of the car and opens the backseat door. She, in her words, told the man to get the fuck out of my car right now. He got up, looked at her, and walked away into the street. My mom never picked up anyone, ever again. Our last big blizzard. I live in a small cul-de-sac in the middle of nowhere. The next nearest neighborhood is over 4 miles away. One night a few years ago, we got over 1.5 feet of snow overnight. So far from main roads, and on the weekend, I knew our roads will remain unplowed for quite some time. I went out to my outback deck door to admire the snow-draped trees and the still heavily falling flurries when I noticed footprints leading to my door, then turning around and leaving. I looked and saw that they came from my neighbor's side, and thought that one of their more delinquent kids played a joke as my sledding tube on the railing was popped. I decided I'd wait till later, as it was early, to call their parents. I went on Facebook, and after scrolling for a little bit, I noticed one of my neighbors closer to the entrance posted, "Did someone knock for me or something at my back door?" I immediately called her and told her I have an idea. I called the first house on the entrance and told him what was going on. He went and checked, and sure enough, they were there too. Everyone started calling everyone else. I called the family at the far end, and they told me there was none there. Then I got a call from my next door neighbor. She called the woman that lives next to the end house. She said that there were footprints that led to her door, but none led away. We already called the police by this point, but now we called them back and said that it's an emergency now. They told us the roads are still all unplowed, and they can't send a plow truck to clear the way, as they are a privately owned company. The women were losing it, so one of the husbands, huge bear of a man across the road from her, texted her to say he was coming over to invite her over. He came and she left. We put up one guy's live feed motion recording hunting cameras facing all exits. Nothing came out. After around 7 p.m., a plow truck came, as well as 3 cop cars. The couple she was staying with and her went to her house and stood in the doorway as the police searched. They found nothing. She begged them to keep looking, so they did. 2 of the cops went into the basement again. This time only one came up. He took her to the side, and we could hear her hysterically crying. Me and a few of the other guys started towards the door when several police confronted us. They told us they found someone hiding under a cover opening in the stairwell that she didn't even know existed. A few minutes later, a scruffy man screaming and kicking came out in cuffs and was led away. In his little camp, they found blankets she just cleaned and put away in the room next to hers. She stayed in other people's houses for a long time before going back. Even then, she wouldn't stay alone. She sold the house the next summer. He turned out to be a thrill-seeking junkie who was on probation for assault against a family member. The cops told us that they feel like he didn't want to stay at his apartment after a fight with his roommate and drove off in his roommate's car from the county over and got stuck in our unplowed roads. We all were called as witnesses in the case, and he took some electronics from her basement. Couldn't get him on that since he never left with the stuff. It was about 4 months of court. Odd encounter with a man who enjoyed a nighttime walk. I like to start this story to say that I am a 16-year-old male who has lived in America for 7 years, and Germany and prior to the other 9 years as well. One late evening about 6 months ago, my mother Yvonne and father Franz were walking what we call group Hyundai. My mother operates what they call in America a groom shop. She cuts dogs' hair and gives them baths. She also runs a boarding kennel out of our garage, which we modified with a run and some large cages made of chain link fence. She is very popular amongst customers, as she is an amazing groomer, and is great with the animals as well. This is where the man comes in. They're giving the dogs a late night walk, time 11:30 p.m. at night. And my mother hears a voice that says, "How are you doing?" She freaks out, and her and my father put the dogs back and run in the house. It's 2 weeks later, and I'm at my best friend's house. He lives next door, but considering we live in the country, his house is about 20 meters away across a field. We were playing video games, having a great time, when we hear a rummaging in his garage. It's about 12:30 a.m., so we get up and see what's going on, as his parents were well asleep. I am a strong German guy, barrel-chested and 6'2", so I go in first with my friend's golf club, and I couldn't believe my eyes. There is a man, slightly hunched over in the racks of my friend's garage. I yell at him in German. To my surprise and added confusion, he replies in French. Most obviously, I am confused. After all, I'd never spoken to a French guy in America, though he didn't sound French at all. He runs out of the garage, and we see that my friend's father was a fool and hadn't locked the door. My friend asked me what he said, and I told him he said, "I was just leaving." Roughly, of course. It's a month later. I'm in my home, in my bedroom, admiring a new poster that I bought, when there's a knock on my window. This is odd. The window is facing the bottom of a hill. I take the flashlight on my desk and shine it out, and the same dude from the garage is standing there, with just his face showing. He is in his 30s, with a mustache growing in and a long face. I have my grandfather's old Bowie knife in my nightstand, which is about 40 centimeters long, and my family has well taken care of. I take it in my hand and scream at him in French, for he speaks it after all. He runs off, though I run outside. It has snowed recently, as it was 2 days before the winter solstice, so I trailed his tracks for about 40 meters, Bowie still in one hand, flashlight in the other hand. I stop at the road, and I must say that I have no idea where the guy came from. It was about half a kilometer until the nearest trailer park, 37 from the nearest supermarket inside a medium-sized tourist town called Sandy in Oregon. There was no car marks anywhere, and I saw footprints on the other side of the road. I went back inside and told my father in the morning, telling him not to tell my mother. She is already paranoid from the last incident. About a week later, things get stranger. My father arrived about 15 minutes earlier at home and forgot to grab the mail. I decided to walk down with him for a nice chat. Keep in mind, this is about 3:45 p.m., so it's still daytime. As my father and I walk down to the mailbox about 40 meters away, nothing odd is happening at all, just usual chatting. But as we walk up, I notice footprints I must have not noticed on the way down. Fresh, human footprints. No shoes. I talk to my father about it and he shrugs it off. As do I. It's 2 a.m. in the morning, a Saturday night or Sunday early morning, when we get a knock on the door. My father and I answer it. My father with an old Mac 50 and I with my Bowie again. My father yells, "Who is it?" We answered it. "This is the police. We have some questions for you." My father answers, "How do you know it's really the police?" Funnily enough, the officer answers, "Sir, there's a window right here," showing his badge through it. We let the officers inside and we sit on our futon. When we stand on the other side of the coffee table, they explain that they had just apprehended a man who had run up our driveway bare naked. This man, apparently, had spoken very little English and almost all French. He lived in a trailer park up the road and was stupidly drunk. They showed us a picture, and I recognized the man as the man who had been both in my friend's garage and had appeared at my window. It was kind of jarring to us. They thanked us for the information and left in their cruiser. I could see the footprints of the man on our driveway and in some locations at our house, both doors, and a different window than my own. There were footprints in the snow. Shoeless footprints. So, drunk Frenchman of the night, let us not meet again. Girls. A few years back, I went to go meet my sister at a mutual friend's apartment after I got off work. It was winter time, and like most of Canada land, we got very cold and snowy winters. So here's the setting. Me on my way through the icy snow to meet up with a group of friends. Now that's out of the way. So I get to our friend's apartment and everything is going as fabulous as a Friday night's after work could go. Mastodon blaring, good friends, and a few joints being passed around. Everyone was pretty drunk by the time I got there, and since I was driving, I only had a beer or two. Around 2 a.m., my sister and I decided to head back home since we were both living at our parents' at the time. Now I should mention that our friend's apartment at the time was not necessarily in the nicest part of town. Many of what we like to call Winnipeg's finest get knifed around there, so it wasn't the most ideal place to be leaving at 2 in the morning. But whatever, we had to get home, right? So my sister, being the genius that she is, had worn heels that night, and about 4 feet of snow, yay, super smart. We had to walk through a back alley to get where I had parked, and as I'd mentioned, everyone but me was pretty tanked by the end of the night, including my sister at the time. So there we were, walking through the sketchy back alley, and she decides to be artistic and starts taking pictures with her phone. I've been walking ahead of her, and was about 10 feet in front when I turned to see what the hell she was doing. My heart nearly sank when I looked back and saw that there was a very not so appealing looking man walking not 15 feet behind my sister. I tried not to make it seem like I was frightened because I had no idea what this guy might do, so I just yelled to my sister to get a move on and nodded my head in his direction. She turned to see him and it clicked that she really needed to haul ass. Just as we both started to speed up our pace, the random stranger began to meet ours. I could see the car about 20 feet away and knew that if we didn't start running, we would not be able to get in the car in time, and he would have caught up to us. Just as things were getting bad, they got worse, and all I could hear from behind us was the most utterly bone-chilling voice call out, "Girls!" It almost sounded like it was coming from the very bottom of his gut. At this point, I thought, fuck this noise, and just screamed, "Sister, run!" Now, all you have seen at least one girl try to run in heels. It ain't pretty. And the fact that there is at least 4 feet of snow. Yay, you can imagine it wasn't easy for her to get her ass over to the car, thankfully. I was an athlete, and sprinted my little legs over to the car just in time to get it unlocked and then lock it right back up again. It was really one of those moments where I was fumbling with the keys to get them in the ignition, and when I finally got the car started, I looked back and saw the creeper like 5 feet behind our car with a giant block of ice, ready to throw at my back window. I noped the fuck out of there as hard as my foot could press on the gas pedal, just as he launched the ice block. My drunk-ass sister was calm in about 5 minutes. I was about nearly pissing myself. Obsessive suicidal lover. This is my second post on here, and this time I'm going to talk about a relationship that went from passionate and romantic to intensely frightening. This is still happening, and some advice will be greatly appreciated. I met this guy in 2015 in a class I was taking to learn French. I used to sit next to this girl called Rosita, and we became friends quickly. She told me her friend was interested in me. That's how I met Alex. He was extremely handsome and very tall, and I was blown away by the fact that someone this divine would even consider me. We met up quite often, and soon enough, we began dating. The first 2 months were amazing. We would talk for hours, take long walks. Every touch made me tingle with excitement. I was too much in love, and so was he. After 3 months, we were out having dinner at a fancy place. I ordered for a scotch, and that set him off. He began saying things like women should not drink, and it was unseemly of me to do so. It came out of nowhere for me. I was stunned. He then walked off when I dared to take a few sips of my scotch. He did not contact me for a week, and I did not apologize because I knew he was clearly in the wrong. I was out of my love trance. This conservative attitude was a deal breaker for me. He contacted me a week later, all apologetic, saying how he grew up with conservative parents and did not know how to react to my drinking. I was cold towards him for a few days, but we patched up. I did drink in front of him after that, and he seemed okay with it. After a few weeks, we were alone in my apartment, and we were fooling around. We proceeded to do the deed. We had never had sex, so this would be our first time. He refused to put on a condom, saying it was against his religion to use protection. I refused to do it. He slapped me 3 times and ran into the bathroom and locked himself and didn't come out till the morning. I was horrified. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to kick him out, but he did not answer me or open the door all night. Morning came, I hadn't slept. I cried all night. He finally came out, apologized, and begged me to not break up. I asked him to get the fuck out and told him it was over. He began to cry. He picked up his things and left. No contact for 2 weeks. I forgot this humiliating experience and moved on with my daily life. One day I get a frantic call from Alex's mother. Alex had cut himself around his wrists, thighs, stomach, and had been hospitalized. She begged me to come and see him because he kept saying my name. I decided to go through with it. My gut was telling me to not do it, though. I rushed to the hospital and reached the emergency room. There he was, semi-conscious. He asked me to come closer. He held my hand and said, if I didn't take him back, he would kill himself the next time. This is just a preview of my love, princess, he said before passing out. I ran out of there. I did not feel any sympathy for this lunatic, and I decided to keep my distance. His mother called me nonstop. I had to switch off my phone. All week she kept calling, messaging to marry him, or he would die. I picked up one of her calls and told her bluntly that her son needed psychiatric help. She called me a whore and kept the phone down. 4 weeks later, my doorbell rang early in the morning. I found a bloodied handkerchief on my doormat. It was fresh blood. There were fresh drops all around my doormat. I screamed and shut my door. I knew he was out there. I peeked through the peephole. Sure enough, he was there, clutching his right arm, bleeding through his shirt. He screamed, "I'm going to kill myself for you, babe," and began slicing his wrist. He was smiling. I opened the door and asked him to please stop. He lunged towards me and kissed me. My top was covered in his blood. My neighbor had heard all the ruckus and came out, pulling Alex aside and called for an ambulance. Alex kept saying, "I love you," the entire time. My neighbor asked me to get some cloth to stop the bleeding. After 5 minutes, we heard the ambulance. The paramedics came up and took him. I slouched in a corner and began to cry. I did not expect this, none of this. Luckily, he did not make any contact with me after this, at least for a few months. This year, in around the later part of the year, I was attending a friend's wedding in India. I checked into the Marriott. I drew myself a bath and the phone rang. It was the counter. He said my guest had arrived and was waiting for me. I thought maybe my friend had come over to meet me to discuss the wedding. I got dressed and went down to the lobby. Alex was standing there with flowers. I asked him how he knew I was here. He smiled creepily and said he just knew. Forgive me for my behavior, princess. I love you. Let us be together, he said. I created a scene in the lobby and demanded that he leave. The hotel staff was supportive and escorted him out. My mind was still reeling from this encounter. The wedding was in 2 days and I barely slept. I was scared. I was alone and he knew I was there. There were many mute nuance calls at night, and I knew it was him. The wedding went off without any incident, and I rushed back home. He hasn't done anything so far, but I am sure he will try to get in touch somehow. I'm scared. I get calls from private numbers all the time, and when I pick up, all I hear is breathing. The Rape Dungeon. Spoiler, no rape in the story. It was a Tuesday evening, around 4 or 5 years ago, in the West Alleys, Wisconsin. And it's January. Me and a few friends would routinely get together and have drinks, watch movies, play video games every Tuesday. I lived around a mile or so from my friend's house, and we would walk to his place after work to avoid driving and possibly getting another OWI, as I already have too. It was a normal Tuesday. Me and my friends got shitty and had a good time. The night was winding down, and it was time for me to leave and head home, as we all had work the next morning. It was around 1 a.m., and I'm taking a side street to get back to my apartment. The street is well lit, as there are streetlights every 20 to 30 feet. The orange glow of the lights glistened off of the snow-covered road as I continued to walk. I had my backpack with my bottle of E&J brandy and a few leftover cans of soda I hadn't used. It was pretty late, so traffic was scarce. This was normal for this time of night. As I'm walking, a beat-up Chevy Cavalier, probably late 90s, pulls up alongside of me, and a heavy-set Mexican man yells to me, "Hey, do you know where Good Hope Road is?" I walk over to the passenger side window and I respond, "Dude, you're in fucking West Allis. Good Hope Road is like downtown Milwaukee, so you're pretty far away. Hold on, I'll check my phone and see if I can get directions." I was psyched, seeing I had a new iPhone, and figured I could try and help this guy out with the directions. So, as I'm fumbling around with my phone, mind you, I'm pretty fucking tipsy at the time, and electronic devices are not my friend when I'm in that state of mind. So I'm standing next to this beat-up Cavalier, trying to fuck with my phone and get directions when the dude asks, "Hey, you like house parties? That's where I'm trying to get to right now." I respond, "Fuck yeah, I do, but still trying to get these goddamn directions through." He tells me to get in the car because he doesn't want to get pulled over. Remember now, we're on a side street with absolutely no traffic, and I've never once seen a cop on my walk home at night, but figured what the fuck, and just hopped in the car like an idiot I can be at times. I try to justify it by repeating that I'm pretty torn up at this point. So he starts driving. I'm still fucking with my phone. He's talking to someone on the phone himself, saying that he's on his way and that it shouldn't be too long before he gets there. We keep driving, and I noticed we're heading away from Milwaukee and going in a direction towards Franklin, a suburb that's in the opposite direction of where he originally had wanted to go. At this point, I was still trying to figure out my fucking phone and was getting annoyed that I couldn't do it. It's been about 10 minutes now, and I'm starting to wonder, like, shit, where is this dude taking me? Why are we not heading towards downtown? And why the fuck is this dude's trunk open? That's when he pulls over and looks at me, tells me he got rear-ended and his truck keeps popping open. So this fat bastard hops out of the car and runs to the back, slams the trunk at least 10 times before he's able to get it to latch, and then gets back into the car now. Even though he hasn't done anything too out of the ordinary, the fact that the car was stopped gave me the opportunity to bounce the fuck out, but being shit-faced, I just sat there and waited for him to finish fucking with his trunk. We start driving again, and that's almost the time I saw a gas station up ahead and asked him to stop. I needed to get cigarettes. I was almost out. He told me the gas station was closed, which was bullshit, as there were at least 5 cars there and it was all lit up. It was about that time that I started to feel a little bit uneasy. Why it took me so long to feel that way, I'm gonna blame it on the alcohol. At this point, I'm starting to question myself, thinking, where the fuck is this guy taking me? So I ask him, dude, where are we going? Good Hope Road is like a good 50 miles in the other direction. He responds, oh, we're going back to my place quick. I need to change for the ladies. I'm thinking, what the fuck, what ladies is this guy talking about? So I'm just like, ladies? Where are these ladies? At the house party, man. You said you liked to party, right? The look on his face when he said it just creeped the fuck out of me. He had this half smile, like he knew something that I didn't. And to top it off, he kept talking. Hey man, I live with my brother, so when we get to the house, you have to be really quiet because him and his wife are asleep. This guy had to be in his mid-30s at least. What the fuck is he doing living with his brother? That's what I was thinking anyways. So I just say okay and stare out the window, watching as we go further and further away from civilization. Inside my head, I'm yelling at myself, why the fuck would you get in the car? Do you want to fucking die? Another 10 minutes of driving, and we arrive at a relatively nice house, and I start to think, okay, maybe I'm just being stupid, and he's not really a freak show. I mean, it is a nice neighborhood, it's a nice house. I'm just overreacting. We get out of the car, and again, he reminds me to be quiet. He doesn't want to wake up his brother. I follow him into the house, and he heads into the basement. When we reach the bottom of the steps, I was stunned at what I saw. There was a bed, which hadn't been made. A large antique dresser with a 19-inch color TV from the 90s, much like dude's car, and clothes strewn all over the floor. There was a few bed sheets hung up surrounding this area, as if they were supposed to make his sleeping area more private. He looked at me and asked, "You need a drink?" I asked him sherry vodka. What the fuck? What guy drinks sherry-flavored vodka? I told him no. I had my bottle of brandy with me, so I was good. He shrugs it off and grabs the bottle, which had yet to be opened, opens it, and takes a little swig, and puts it on the dresser. He looks at me and says, "Hey, help me fix up this bed. We want to be ready for the ladies." Once again, what the fuck? We were only there so this dickhead could change, and then we were supposed to be going to some house party. Now all of a sudden he wants me to help tidy this rat den for some supposed ladies he keeps talking about? I'm just like, okay, and grab the corner of the sheets and help him make the bed. The whole time I'm looking around and wondering what the fuck did I get myself into? We finish, and he pulls out his phone and starts talking. Now to this day, I'm not sure if he was actually talking to anyone. I'm pretty sure this asshole was just trying to make it appear as if he was talking to some girl, but never was. He then looks at me and says, "Hey, the ladies want to see what you look like. Can I take a picture of you?" I'm just like, I guess. Can I see what they look like? He responds, "I don't have a picture of them, but trust me, you'll be pleased." I'm still creeped out, but seeing this guy was quite a bit bigger than me. I'm a whole 5'5", 120 pounds. I comply and allow this idiot to take my picture. He then crosses the creeper line. "Hey, unbutton the 2 top buttons of your shirt." I throw this guy a weird look and respond, yeah, why? He tells me the ladies will like it. So I ask him when these ladies are going to arrive. "Oh, they're working and will be done in an hour, but they want to see who they're really gonna party with, you know?" I said okay, and then asked if he had a bathroom, so I could use, figuring I'd have to go upstairs. No such luck. He points to the right side of the stairs, where I see another bedsheet hung up. I walk over to it, and there is a freestanding toilet, surrounded by a sheet. This was all too much for me. I take a quick piss and come back to where this dude was lounging on his bed, watching his shitty little TV. He again persists that the ladies need to see a picture of me, and at this time asked me to unbutton 3 of my buttons on my shirt. I'm not sure exactly why he wanted to see my chest so bad, but that was the final straw. I told him that I needed a cigarette, and asked if it was cool I smoked. He said that since it was his brother's house, that I have to go outside. Fucking jackpot. I said, okay, I'm gonna have a smoke and I'll be right back. I grabbed my bag, as he wasn't watching, and walked up the steps, slowly. I didn't want to alarm this creeper prior to my escape. I got outside, took a deep breath, and started running as fast as I fucking could. I ran for a good 2 miles before I stopped and collapsed, my legs burning and my chest feeling like it was ready to explode. I was on the ground for a good 5 minutes before I got up and started to walk. As I was walking, I could hear a vehicle approaching me from behind. I said fuck it and hid behind a bush, waiting for it to pass. Sure as shit, it was this asshole in a shitty Cavalier prowler. My guess is he was looking for me. I stayed still as he passed by, and eventually the car disappeared from sight. I am now easily 13 miles or so from my apartment, and it's the middle of nowhere. I ended up trying to call a few friends, but at 3 a.m., not too many people are awake, and I was unable to get anyone on the phone. The walk was long, and it was cold, but I eventually made it home. I called my boss and told him some bullshit story about being sick and then passed out, exhausted from the walk home. Thankfully, I never seen that fat prick again, as I'm pretty sure he would have raped my ass had I stayed long enough. Creepy meth head who shoveled my snow. This story happened around 2009 or so, when I was 13 years old. I was home one winter day waiting for my friends to pick me up for a sleepover. I was with my older sister and my mother, who is handicapped. We were all just hanging around until we hear a knock at the door. My older sister, who is pretty brave, answers it. It's some disheveled meth head looking guy, who says he lives next door and asked if he could shovel our snow for us. This guy looks like your classic typical meth head. Sores on the skin, missing teeth, creepy eyes, shitty clothes. We say no, a bit creeped out. He leaves and nothing happens for a bit. About 20 minutes later, we hear something outside. The guy is frantically shoveling our snow, despite us telling him no. We are all pretty creeped out at this point, but try to chalk it up as some homeless guy wanting to make a quick buck. But why would he say he was a neighbor and do it anyways after we said no? I call my friend and tell her to wait, and explain the situation, as I don't want to leave my sister and mom home alone in case. My mom texts my dad and also explains it to him. We grab baseball bats and other forms of defense, and hide out in the bathroom waiting. I'm mostly scared because, as I said, my mother is handicapped, and even though she's pretty strong, she couldn't fend off a crazy meth head. Suddenly, we hear a very loud banging on the front door, and freeze in terror as we realize it's the guy. My mom calls my dad and quietly asks if he can come home from work because we are all very terrified. At this time, he worked about 25 to 30 minutes away, but said he was on his way. He's about 6'3" tall and takes no shit from anyone, so we all felt a bit safer knowing he would be home somewhat soon. The banging continues for a bit and then stops abruptly. My dad finally gets home and makes sure we're all okay. I went to the sleepover eventually, but after that I was pretty paranoid for a good few weeks. Incidentally, I asked one of our neighbors who I went to school with, and this guy turned out to not live next door at all. We never heard from him or saw him ever again. Creepy meth head who shoveled my snow and banged on my door. Let's not meet again. I was the creeper. I am a 28-year-old male living in the Deep South. I am now a functional, medicated, and therapy attending paranoid schizophrenic. However, I wasn't always this way, and this story comes from a time before I even knew what was wrong. It was about April 2007 when this happened. I'd just come out of a painful divorce, and she had taken all of my friends from me in the process. I was obviously trying to reach out to anyone I could, but I had severe codependency issues, and I didn't know how to address it. Anyways, I found myself wandering the game section of my local Walmart, as I am still a gamer at heart, and had to see what was available. Things were going alright, and I seemed to be in control of myself. Then he appeared. This poor, unsuspecting soul started talking to me about World of Warcraft, which I happened to play. I perked up at this point thinking I could make a friend, a new friend, that had been taken away from me. We made casual jokes and talks about the new expansion. At this point, his mother, he was probably about 18 or 20 judging by his appearance, came by and took him to another aisle. He didn't say goodbye, just walked off, and like that, our conversation was through. Well, in my mind, we had made a connection, we had bonded. In my sick, twisted state, I thought he would appreciate it if we hung out for a while. So I followed him. I made a point to casually stroll down the aisles that he happened to visit, and strike up conversations with him about different things. Jokes. I can't remember. I could tell he was getting creeped out by the third time I had done this. He started getting this deer in headlights look every time he saw me, though in my eyes, it was perfectly natural. At some point, however, his fight or flight must have kicked in, because when I appeared, as soon as I opened my mouth to speak, he screamed, "Leave me alone!" and stormed off, dragging his mother as quickly as he possibly could. This was a wake-up call for me, that I was being severely creepy and also a stalker. I realized that this could very well be the behavior that caused my divorce in the first place. I checked myself into a mental institution soon after, and got the help I needed. I am now significantly better, and my relationships with people have improved greatly. I now have good friends and a loving fiancé. Not all creepers mean to be creepy. Some of us just need the proper psychiatric help. On behalf of all the unknowing and good-intentioned creepers out there, I humbly and sincerely apologize for our behavior. It doesn't make it forgivable, but I hope it does give some good context as to what goes on in the mind of a creeper. Thank you for your time.